Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. It is the DOUG here once again, and it's time for another Let's Play. Of course, this is one of the side ones. You know, we just got done doing the sweetest monster. But this one's one because of, as you see in the description, Penguin Pop Games. I was honest. I asked them, hey, do you have a code for the US version? I would love to Let's Play it on the channel or look at it. We know Let's Play would happen, most likely. And they actually gave me a code, so thank you so much for that. I'm just going to get it shared to everywhere it needs to go real quick. While we start this. Of course, that means we will be going... Ooh, that's loud. There we go. Now I don't feel like I'm going to have a thing banging in my head. Now, of course, I do know this is technically an easy platinum, but we're not here to get the platinum easy. We're here to play the game and enjoy the story. My name is Lucia, and I'm 13 years old. I have short black hair and blue eyes, and I'm in love with my older brother. Well, right out the gate of wilderness. Got it. You saw what the hell the sweetest monster ended. I live in a small village called Zennor, which is located on the north coast of Cornwall, down in the bottom corner of England. That's two games now we've done back to back that it's about England. I've always thought Zennor is a funny name. It looks like Leonor, which is a type of fabric conditioner Mom uses when she washes my clothes. In school last week for an English project, my class had to research our homes and write reports about them. I learned that alphabetically, Zennor comes last on the list of portions in Britain. I know I'm butchering a lot of this. Big words I don't understand. Zennor is a very tiny village. About 200 people live here. It really is that small. Wow. That is tiny. Probably the same amount of base of people who actually watch TNA wrestling still. Or North Carolina fans. Take your pick. We don't have any proper shops, and we don't have any cinemas, and we don't have any restaurants. We do have a church, though. It's an old-fashioned stone building with wooden pews. The church in general is a bit famous, actually. There's an old carving of a mermaid in one of the pews that dates back to the 15th century. The mermaid was called I'm just going to call her M, and she fell in love with a human man called Matty. Matty? I'm just going to say Matt just so I don't butcher it. The people of Zennor were very close-minded back then, and they hated mermaids. They thought they were monsters. Moreover was scared Matthew would be hurt if he stayed with her. She loved Matt, and she was willing to leave him if it would keep him safe. Matt loved M just as much as she loved him, however, to such an extent that he abandoned Zennor and went to live at the bottom of the ocean with her. When did he drown? I think about that story a lot. Sometimes I think I am like M, but the stories say that she was very beautiful and I am not. I don't have the tail of a fish, but my classmates think I'm weird, and I'm also in love with somebody I can't be with. When I'm not thinking about mermaids, I'm usually thinking about my brother. I think about my brother a lot. Yeah, we kind of figured that out. Why is it when I'm trying to share the streams on my phone wants to act stupid? I've always thought about him, but I've been thinking about him more than usual lately. My brother doesn't live with me and my dad and my mother, who is not his mother anymore. He lives in London and he goes to university there. Makes me wonder then if it's more of a half-bro, half-sister kind of thing. Technically enough, I just watched an episode of House about that they didn't know they were actually related until like the end, because the father was, well, a cheating scumbag. He lives in London and he goes to university there. He's a lot older than me. I am only 13, but my brother is 19. His name is Jesse, and he has black hair and blue eyes and is very tall. We have the same hair and eye color, but I do not think we look much alike. Jesse is always smiling while I always look sad. Jesse isn't my full brother, he is my father's son, but his mother died before I was born. So I was correct. It is a half-brother, half-sister kind of situation. I think Dad is still sad that his old wife died, though. It happened 15 years ago. I wouldn't be surprised if he still loves her. When Dad talks about her, which isn't very often, he sounds very soft and gentle and undad-like. He says her name, Tegan, like it's some kind of charm or magical spell. Maybe that is why Dad isn't very nice to me or my mother. Is it because my mother is not Jesse's mother and I am not Jesse's real sister? I am just a half-formed maybe, like M with her human torso and her fish tail. I sometimes wish I was a mermaid. Then I would have a nice singing voice and I would be beautiful. And I could live in the water. I wouldn't have to go to school. And you'd probably still have to go to school. A school of fish? Huh? Yeah, that joke was reaching. I apologize. Then I remind myself that if I was a mermaid, I wouldn't be Jesse's sister, and we wouldn't know each other. And he wouldn't love me, and I wouldn't love him. And what would be the point in that? Jesse is the only person who makes me happy. Without him, my life would be meaningless. It has been 2 months since Jesse went away to university, and I miss him a lot. He said he would call me every single day, he promised, and I believed him because Jesse always keeps his promises. Jesse is a good person, and that is why everybody likes him. That is why I love him. But he hasn't called me nearly as often as he said he would. I wonder what he's doing right now. I don't know what London is like. I can't imagine. I've never been to a city before. Unless you count Pezinin, I don't think that is nearly as big as London. I've seen pictures of London on the internet, and I know what the London Eye looks like. In the House of Parliament, in Big Ben, there are lots of old tall buildings made of stone in London, and lots of new modern buildings made of glass. It looks busy, the pavements are dirty, and it's full of people. I don't think I would want to live in London. I don't like living in Zennor much either because it's tiny, and I don't have any friends except Jesse, but he is not here anymore. It's kind of sad, actually. He is in London and I am in Zennor, and he promised that he would call me every day, but he hasn't. How do I know if he's alright? What if he has been hurt? Thoughts like that keep me awake all night. I have been feeling scared a lot lately. Sometimes I feel so scared I can't eat, but I don't mind that much, as I have never liked eating. If I've lost weight, my dad has not commented on it. I don't think he cares about me. But my counselor at school, Mrs. K, does. I went to see his feeling. I think Mrs. K feels sorry for me because my family is poor, and my school uniform is never ironed and my school shoes are always dirty. I feel sorry for me too, but not because of my dirty clothes. I feel sorry for me because Jesse is not here. I told Mrs. K I was having trouble sleeping and eating because I was missing my brother, and she nodded and said, "Oh, Jesse, I remember him. He was such a sweet boy." "No," I said stiffly because I didn't like her tone of voice. "He's still a sweet boy. He isn't dead." "Oh, of course not. I wasn't trying to imply that," Mrs. K replied. "Then why were you talking about him in past tense?" I asked. I stared at Mrs. K challengingly, and she looked embarrassed and apologized for hurting my feelings. This made me feel a bit better, but only a bit. Mrs. K has worked at my school for a long time, and she knows Jesse. He used to go to this school too before he went to London. Maybe he became a werewolf in London. After a little dispute, Miss K caused them hiccups. Miss K asked me how Jesse was doing, and I told her I didn't know because he didn't call that often, and I was worried about him. The more I talked about Jesse, the worse I felt. I started to cry, and Miss K had to hand me a tissue and ask me to calm down. I did try to calm down, I swear I did, but my shoulders kept shaking and my eyes stung. I told Miss K I was afraid Jesse might have gone and lost in London, because it is so big. Or maybe he had been stabbed or killed. Well, that's one way to look at it. Mrs. K patted me on the back and said she didn't think Jesse had been killed. Because if he had, the police would have called my family and I would have known about it. Then why hasn't Jesse called me? I asked. Mrs. K frowned. I'm sure he's just having fun. London is a lot bigger than any of the towns in Cornwall, and there's so much to do. He's probably trying to take in all the sights, Mrs. K said. Does that mean he's forgotten about me? I asked. Oh no, Lucille. I don't think Jesse would ever forget about you. You're a very individual child. I thought that was a stupid thing to say because everybody is an individual. But I didn't tell Mrs. K that because I knew she was trying to be nice. She's one of the only people I know who bothers trying. Jesse's growing up and he's living his own life, that's all. It's normal for children to branch away from their families as they get older. But I'm sure he'll keep in touch, Mrs. K told me. You don't think he's lost? I asked Miss K seriously because I wanted to make sure. I thought it was a sensible question, but Miss K laughed like I told a joke. I wish she wouldn't do that. She should know by now I don't tell jokes. I'm sure he isn't lost, Lucille. Your brother has a good head on his shoulders. He'll be fine, she said. She sounded so convinced I was almost convinced, too. Now, of course, I don't know when the trophy's unlock. I will be honest with that. So we're just going to unlock them together in this Let's Play. I suppose this means that Jesse isn't lost, and he hasn't been stabbed, and he's just in London enjoying himself. Probably to get away from his mom and his dad, his stepmom, and his half-sister who wants to go riding. He's living his own life. That should make me feel happy, but it doesn't. Makes me feel worse than ever. Jesse isn't lost, and he isn't sick, and he isn't in trouble. Then why hasn't he called me in so long? He has no excuse. I am his sister. I may not be his full sister, but we were raised together, and I love him, and I thought he loved me. I thought I was important to him. I thought I mattered. Why has he abandoned me? Why is he ignoring me? Doesn't he know how much I love him? If I keep spending my nights wide awake staring up at the ceiling, the bags beneath my eyes will grow darker and darker, like bushes, but I don't care. It doesn't matter. Nothing seems to matter without Jesse. Well, damn. And there's the first trophy, another day. Lucille struggles through another monstrous day. Of course, we do have more trophies to go. We have most of them, and all of them are gold, so that is a good thing there. I hate school more than I hate school itself, and I hate school a lot. I go to St. Elve's School in St. Elve's. It isn't, as Miss L would say, in that smoothie way of hers, a very original name. I used to go to Ty Hall Primary, which wasn't so bad because the teachers were nice to me. They didn't get picked on as much, but now I go to St. Elve's School, and it's horrible. I hate the uniforms, and I hate the school dinners, and I hate most of the teachers, but I hate my classmates more than all that put together. I don't know why they even called classmates. They're not my mates. I get teased a lot in class, but it isn't that bad because Sheen is there to look out for me. Man, a lot of these names I have a hard time pronouncing. Good Lord. The teasing is much, much worse on the bus to and from school because Action is not there and I'm on my own. I am met with mean whispers the moment I step onto the bus. The main bullies are called Ashla and Phoebe and Lucy and Megan, and they're all in year 9 like me, and I hate them. I think they hate me too, but I don't know why. I've never done anything to them other than exist, because children are assholes. Just look at her, says Megan, while I try to find a seat. She's getting skinnier by the day. You know, most children would act, maybe because I was in high school, I remember if you were the skinny ones, you didn't get made fun of. You don't think she's anorexic, do you? X says, of course not. She's just looking for attention like always, says Lucy. Her clothes are so shabby. And look at her hair. It's so matted and greasy, says Phoebe. Does she even shower? She stinks, says Megan. Shish, she'll hear you, says Isla. Good, I want her to hear us. Maybe she'll start taking better care of herself, says Lucy. Isn't she ashamed to go outside looking like that, says Phoebe. Maybe she's too stupid to know what shame is, says Megan, and then they all laugh, even Osa, who's probably the nicest of the four. Wow, all four of those women need an RKO out of nowhere. Ashley was in my English class, and once she let me borrow a pencil when I lost mine. She didn't pull a face when I took the pencil from her, and she even smiled at me. She isn't smiling now, though. I slump down in my seat and rest my cheek against the window. It feels cold and relaxing against my face. I look at my reflection in the window. The windows of the bus are dirty, and the Lucine who looks back at me is distorted. Her reverse face is even grimmier than mine. The sleeve of my blazer is grimy too, and it smells of bacon fat. Ooh, bacon! Bacon's... I'm sorry, man. You smell like bacon? Shit, I would be okay with that. I'd be your friend, because I love bacon. I helped my mother make breakfast this morning, and the oil spilled down my front, and I didn't have enough time to change it. Oh, but you smell like bacon. Any man would be happy. Now, of course, if you hate bacon, then get the hell off the planet. I thought my mother would thank me for helping her, but she didn't. She just sighed and tutted, and I said I was clumsy. I licked my fingertip and started scraping the spot of grease, but it didn't budge. I don't know what I was expecting. She's not saying anything, murmurs Lucy. Do you think she's crying, asks Elsa. Why don't you cry, Lucille? It might clean your dirty face, says Megan. Okay, Megan needs to get thrown off the bus while it's moving. I don't really feel like crying, so I don't. I wouldn't bother shedding tears over these idiots. Mrs. K told me when people tease me, I should count to 10 inside my head and try to picture a tranquil lake, but that never seems to work. And W does not stop me from being bullied. It is completely pointless. I really can't stand that girl. She's so freaky, says Lucy. She always stares at me, too, with this creepy look on her face, says Phoebe. Gross, says Lucy. And she smells, says Megan. Hey, Lucy, did you hear that? You smell, says Megan. You could at least brush your teeth, you know, says Phoebe. Hey, since we were feeling so generous, why don't you take this, says Megan, but she does not say it. She shouts it. I scrambled up above foil and paper flies down the length of the bus and lands in my lap. It is very light projector and it doesn't hurt, but it still takes me by surprise. I pick it up and unfold it, smoothing out the rough greases beneath my fingertips. It is a wrapper with a package of spearmint gum. Somebody must have chucked it. I'm used to that. People throw things at me a lot. A chewing gum wrapper is not worth worrying about. I've had much larger objects thrown in my direction. The boys are usually more daring than the girls. PE bags are rather common, but so are footballs and bottles of soda. Damn! Life kind of sucks. I'm sorry for that. I was once hit in the head with a soda bottle. The top must have been screwed on loosely because it fell off and I was soaked from head to foot with sticky liquid. All the boys and girls laughed. The bus driver did not laugh. He glared at us in the rearview mirror and said, I hope one of you is going to stay behind and clean up that mess. I'll be having a strict word with your parents. He did seem too concerned about my welfare. He was more alarmed about the seats of his precious bus, which are ugly anyway. I combed the chewing gum wrap up in my fingers and stashed it away inside my pockets. Now what do you say? Why don't you thank us, says Lucy. As if she never speaks to us, says Megan. But that doesn't stop her from staring, says Phoebe. What a weirdo, scoffs Lucy. It's no wonder her brother left her, says Megan, and then she laughs. My fingers tighten into a fist on my lap. Notions of the school bus knock my head against the window. I don't care what the bullies say about me or my parents, but I do care what they say about my brother. I care about Jesse more than I care about anything else in the world. How could they ever hope to understand a love like mine? I could try and explain it, but I know it would not help. My boys are too stupid and simple and narrow-minded to know what love is. They do not know anything, and they are wrong when they say that I smell. I do not. Not deliberately, at least. Hey, Lucia, aren't you going to say anything? Are you dumb, says Lucy, or Megan, or Phoebe, or Isa? But at this point, I cannot tell them apart. I wish they would all shut up. She never tries to defend herself. She's such a weirdo. Why does she have to go to our school anyway? Aren't there special schools for people like her? I'm sick and tired of seeing her every day. She's so depressing. Damn. Do you think she knows that she's a weirdo? How can she not know? It's so obvious. I fold my arms across my chest and look out of the window. The scenery speeds past. It goes by quickly, but it's not quick enough. I wish the bus driver would drive and drive and drive until all of Cornwall became a blur, and everything around me disappeared. All the mocking laughter, all the cruel insults, all the nasty names, everything. I wouldn't mind if the driver put his foot down on the accelerator and drove this bus right off the side of a cliff. Everybody would die, all the people who are mean to me and all the people who ain't mean to me, but who sit there quietly while I'm being bullied without defending me. Sometimes I think those people are even worse than the bullies, and the bus driver is worse of them all. He's supposed to be an adult, but he lets my classmates tease me without saying a word. Maybe he doesn't want to start a scene. Maybe he doesn't think it's worth it. Maybe he doesn't think I'm worth it. Am I less than human to him? I must be less than human to the others, or they wouldn't treat me like this. He wants to be insulted and harassed and called names. Mrs. K seems to think the bullying will stop if I remember to say please and thank you, but I think she is deluded. I do not always know how to respond appropriately in situations, but I think a cut piss off would be justified in my case. Swearing does not stop the bullying either, though I've already tried it. That is particularly how I ended up with a counselor in the first place. Oh boy. A friendly face. When I step into my classroom that morning, 10 minutes... I'm just going to say Miss A. Well, Miss A thinks she's my friend. I'm not sure about that. Miss A is a cheerful girl with blonde hair and brown eyes. She has pierced ears and painted her nails, and her school bag has a fluffy pom-pom keychain hanging from the zipper. She's very soft and sweet. She smells soft and sweet, too. I know it's because sometimes she stands a bit too close to me and I can smell her. Her birthday is in October, which is right near the beginning of the school term. She is 14, which makes her older than me, though she does not act it. I don't know why Miss M wants to be my friend. We don't have anything in common. Well, I can kind of figure it out. Starfire and Raven. My hair is dark, but hers is blonde. My eyes are blue, but hers are brown. She smiles a lot. She's very talkative, and most people like her. I am quiet, and my form teacher, Mr. P, says I look sully and skulky most of the time, and nobody likes me. Aww. I don't understand why Miss A is so cheerful. To be honest, it gets on my nerves. I try to put up with her, though, because if I didn't have Miss A, I wouldn't have anybody, and this school really would be unbearable. I don't think of it as being two-faced. I'm being tactical. All military commanders would agree with my strategy. I think school is more dangerous than the battlefield. Hey, Lucia, how are you doing? Miss A says. I'm fine, I say after a pause. I didn't get much sleep last night, so I feel tired, and the sleeve of my school uniform is spotted with bacon fat, and I got teased on the bus on the way to school, but these are common occurrences. I'm used to them, and it doesn't really bother me. Sheen's nonsense does bother me, however. Are you sure you're fine? Sheen asks, as though I'm so stupid I can't understand my own emotions, let alone anybody else's. You look tired. I woke up early and helped my mother make breakfast, I say. It's nice you want to help your mother, but shouldn't you look after yourself first? Sheen asks. I don't mind, I tell her, for what must be the dozenth time. Jesse used to help when he was at home, but now he's at university, so I have to help instead. Couldn't your father do it? He doesn't seem fair that you should work so hard. You're only 13. Sheen examines. Life isn't fair, I say. I put my bag on my lap and open it. I remove my planner and pencil case and arrange them neatly on my desk. I like things being neat and tidy. I hope Asheen might get the idea and leave me alone, but she doesn't. She never does. Instead, she looks at me and frowns. Hey, Lucille, did you eat breakfast today? I shake my head. Why does she care? Weren't you hungry? She asked. I shake my head again. Well, it's a good thing I stopped by the supermarket on my way to school. Sheen says, but she really doesn't say it. Sheen has a light, littering voice, and it often sounds like she's singing. Sheen digs into her school bag, which is very pink and cute, and receives a slightly scorched ice finger, which is wrapped in a plastic bag. The ice finger is piped with pink icing, and some of the icing is smeared onto the sides of the bag. It does not look very appetizing. Is that for me, I ask? I was saving it for break, but I've already had two, Asheen says, so you should have the last one. You need it more than I do. I want to tone her down, but Mrs. K is always telling me I should be nicer to Asheen. Thank you, I say. I don't feel very thankful. I wish Asheen wouldn't have brought me anything at all. But I suppose it's the thought that counts. That is what Mrs. K tells me. I accept the pink iced finger from Asheen and unwrap it. The cool plastic crinkles beneath my fingers. I bring the pink iced finger to my lips, slowly opening my mouth and take a tiny bite out of the end. I eat very, very slowly, which annoys Dad. He has shouted at me about my eating habits before. He said I was wasting good food and it was going to go cold. And did I think I was too bloody good to eat the same meals as everybody else? Do I want to be treated like a queen? I do not want to be treated like anything. I just want to be left alone. So, Asheen says, what do you think? Is it good? It's fine, I tell her, because it isn't good. And I don't want to lie, but I don't want to hurt her feelings either. I think I'm making progress. Miss K would be proud of me. Well, good, Asheen says with a bright smile on her face. You better finish it before class starts. I'll do my best, I say dubiously, because there really is a lot of icing on this iced finger, and I don't like sweets very much. I don't like food much in general. It's messy, and it gets everywhere, just like the spot of grease on my shirt. So, Lucia, Ace says again, how is your big brother? Have you heard from him at all? I look at the iced finger, which is even pinker than Asheen's school bag, and frown. When Asheen isn't fussing over me, she's asking questions about Jessie. Asheen used to sit next to him in our forum in year 7, but she did not pay any attention for the first month or so. She was busy talking with other girls, mostly about TV shows and music and other things I've never cared about. Then one day Jessie came into the classroom to talk to me. He had forgotten his pencil case and he wanted to borrow some of my stationery. Jessie is handsome, unlike me, and the girls in my class were interested in him. They asked me who he was and why he was willing to talk to me and how I knew him. Asheen was the most curious of all. I told him he was my brother. They looked at me frowning and they said, really? Like I was on. They said, he doesn't look very much like you. I know Jessie does not look like me, so I did not say anything. There was nothing else to say. I just turned my head and stared out the window. I thought that would be the end of things. But ever since that day, Asheen has been determined to become my friend. Some of my classmates think Asheen acts nice to me because she pities me. Some of my classmates think she acts nice to me because the headmaster asked her to. I think she acts nice to me because she has a crush on my brother. Nobody believes Asheen acts nice to me because she actually likes me, apart from maybe Asheen herself. She has even been to my house for sleepovers a few times. She insisted. She spent most of the time asking questions about Jessie, which I didn't like. I liked it even less when Jessie smiled at her at the breakfast table the following day and played along with her jokes, and said her earrings looked cute. Why do you want to know about my brother? I actually seemed suddenly in a bad mood. Jessie's mine, not yours. I know he's not my brother, Asheen asked, but he means a lot to you, doesn't he? You were upset when he was moving away, right? That's right, I was upset. You're not allowed to be, I said sharply. Lucia, how are you being so cold? I'm trying to look out for you. It sounds more like you're interested in my brother, I replied. Maybe I'm interested in him, Asheen, but I do care about you too. I don't want you to be sad. I'm not sad, I told her, but that isn't entirely true. I think Asheen knows that too. She might be a bit of an idiot, but she isn't completely stupid. You can tell me if you're feeling down, she says hopefully. Isn't that what friends are for? I'm not down and I start to say, but then I cut myself. I was going to tell her that she isn't my friend because I don't think she is, but that would be rude and it would probably upset Mrs. K. Asheen is one of the only girls in your class who talks to you, Mrs. K always tells me. She should return her efforts. Don't push her away. I don't want you to be more isolated than you already are. I often think I'd rather be lonely than pretend friends with a girl who is in love with my brother. But I like Mrs. K, and I don't want to hurt her feelings. I don't really want to hurt Asheen's either. It isn't Sheen's fault that she is stupid and she has an annoying voice and she's in love with my brother. She can't help any of that. Damn, okay. It's fine, I eventually tell her, seeing my fingers picking at the pink ice. But I do worry about you. You're my friend, and we've been friends for 2 years, haven't we? I suppose we have, I say, blinking because Asheen is right. It has been a long time. You're always so distant, Asheen says. I want to help if there's anything wrong, but I don't know if I can. You never talk to me. That's because you always do the talking, I tell her. Well, maybe you have a point, Asheen says, and she laughs. My dad says I'm a huge chatterbox. I'm just like my mom. I'm not like my mom, I'm like my dad. Oh, what do you mean? I make people around me unhappy. And who told you that? Asheen's asking, planting her hands on her hips. If people are being mean to you, so you tell me and I'll sort them out. You don't need to sort out anybody out, I say. I can look out after myself. It is true I could look after myself easier if murder was not a crime and schoolgirls were allowed to bring knives to school. Doki Doki Literature Club! Are you sure you're alright? Asheen asks about drink. I can talk to Megan if she's saying mean things again. It's fine, I was just telling the truth. I said, I think I must be like my father because Jesse doesn't like him. And if he liked me, he would have called me by now. You mean you haven't heard from him? Asheen asks. I shake my head. My fingers picked at the pink icing of the ice bomb, but I don't put any of it into my mouth. I don't feel hungry. Talking about Jesse does strange things to my stomach. In the past, it used to fill my stomach with fluttering butterflies. Now it makes me feel sick. Maybe he got tired of me, I say quietly, still dissenting my dessert with my fingertips. Mrs. K said she probably hadn't called because he was busy, but if he really loved me, he would make time for me, wouldn't he? I keep picking at the ice bun. My fingertips are sticky and covered in pink sugary slime, but I don't stop. Maybe he wanted to escape from me, I say. Maybe he was just tired of Dad, but me too. I probably annoyed him a lot. Mrs. K says I can be rather difficult. I look at Asheen. And am I difficult? I ask Asheen because I have to. She's the only person in this school I can talk to other than Miss K. And though I doubt she'll give me a decent advice, I know she won't laugh at me. She isn't like I see Phoebe, Lucy, and Megan. Maybe Asheen laughs at me behind my back with her other friends, but she doesn't do it to my face, unlike everybody else, which is kind of her. You can be difficult sometimes, but I think that makes you interesting, A says. I'm interesting, I ask. That's right, you're really funny. That's why I wanted to be your friend. I thought you wanted to be my friend because you liked my brother, I retort. Well, I do like your brother, obviously, A says, her cheeks turning pink. But if I was only interested in him, I wouldn't keep talking to you, would I? I mean, he's at university now. I guess not, I say, because this is a valid point I haven't really thought about. I taught you because I'd like talking to you, A says. I can't stand how mean the other girls are to you. It isn't fair. The word isn't fair, I tell her again, but because it isn't. Maybe not, but I'm going to stick by your side all the same. I care about you, Lucille. You can rely on me, and you can rely on your brother, too, A declares. Do you really think so, I ask? I'm not sure why I value A's opinion so very much. She's an idiot, after all. But she is popular, and most people like her, so she must know some things I don't. Maybe she isn't as stupid as she looks. I think so, A says firmly. I know how much Jesse cares about you. He's a nice person, and he won't abandon you. He wouldn't do that. You're just saying that because you like him, I say. I like him because he's a good person, A says, and he's good looking too. He's 19, I tell A flatly. He's too old for you. And I add inside my head, if you make a move on him, I'll never talk to you ever again, even if you're my only friend, because I love my brother much more than you could imagine, you idiot. Well, maybe, Ace says, her face turning pink again, as it often does whenever Jesse comes up. But he's your brother, right? You should know him even better than I do. I know him much better than you do, I tell her. Then you should know he'll always be there for you, no matter what, Ace says. That's why you shouldn't be sad. I'm sure he'll call you soon. You just need to have more faith. That's what Mrs. K says, too. And she's right. Stop being so mopey. Now finish up your iced finger. They always cheer me up when I'm sad. I can't imagine A ever being sad. She's permanently cheerful and she hardly ever frowns. She isn't like me. Then again, most people ain't. The school day passes without event. Interesting things rarely happen at school. Even the endless parade of bullying has become boring. I have heard every insult dozens of times before. Miss Miss Lambert, my nasty English teacher, gave us our score for English projects, which we handed in last week. She actually wrote an article about our hometown or village, highlighting, to use our own words, the more interesting aspects of it. As I live in Zone, which is very small, there isn't much to write about. When I looked up Zone online, I learned that the famous writer D.H. Lawrence lived in Zone for a while. Miss Lambert told me I should write about that, but I didn't feel like it. I thought D.H. Lawrence was boring, so I wrote about the Mermaid of Zennor instead. I wrote a lot about the mermaid, actually. I wrote pages and pages, much more than everybody else. But Liz Lambert can't appreciate it very much because she gave me a D. Well, damn. She said that though my essay was well written, I supposed to write an actual account about my village, not a fairy tale. Your purpose are well divided and your vocabulary is diverse, Miss Lambert wrote on my homework in red pen, but you stray too far from the subject matter. Read the question more carefully next time, Lucille. I don't know why she punctuated her criticism with 3 exclamation points. I thought Miss Lambert was supposed to be an English teacher. She should know how unnecessary it is to use more than 1 exclamation point. How can I take a comment seriously when she's so bad at writing herself? I think my essay about the Mermaid of Zennor annoyed her. I seem to annoy all of my teachers, but I annoy Miss Lambert most of all because she thinks I have potential. But I never listen to what she says. Miss Lambert tells me I daydream too often in class, which I do, but that is her fault because her lessons are boring and so are the books we have to read. I'd pay more attention if we were allowed to read exciting books, like the Discord series, which are some of my favorites because my brother liked them, instead of A Christmas Carol, which is boring. Now, hey, A Christmas Carol is good. Boo. I don't know why we're reading A Christmas Carol anyway, because it's not Christmas yet. It will be Christmas soon because it's November, but still a whole month away. Teachers are stupid. My classmates are stupid. School is stupid. Mrs. K isn't stupid, though, and I think Mrs. K is rather smart. I like her much more than I like Mr. P, Miss Lambert, and the rest of the teachers. At the school on Mondays and Thursdays, I had to go to Miss K's office for half an hour. Miss K says it's for a friendly chat. She even brews tea and prepares biscuits, though she probably isn't meant to do that because she's my teacher and not my friend. Isn't it a friendly chat, though? And Miss K doesn't see me because she wants to. This is actually a counseling session, which I have to attend because last year when I was in year 8, I stabbed Megan in the hand with a compass in math class because she said mean things about my brother. She said I was from a family full of freaks, which would normally upset me because I don't like dad or mom, and I don't like myself much either, but she said my brother seemed normal, but he was probably just messed up as I was, and that made me angry, so I stabbed her. I think it was a reasonable response, but my math teachers disagreed, so I was sent to the headmaster's office. The headmaster asked me why I stabbed Megan. I said it was because she was rude to my brother, and the headmaster said he could understand why that might have made me angry, but most people don't stab their classmates when they're in a bad mood. I said Megan and her friends are always mean to me, and I tried to ignore it, but picking on my brother was the last straw. The headmaster was sympathetic, but he still suspended me from school for 3 days. Then I had to do a psych evaluation, and the doctor at the hospital said I had some unresolved problems, so now I have counseling sessions with Mrs. K. The headmaster told Megan off for being mean to me, but he didn't give her a suspension, which I thought was horribly unfair. Megan started teasing me for a bit, maybe because she was scared of me, but after a few weeks the teasing started over again, so I don't think it helped. I like talking to Miss K, though, and I like her tea, and I even like the biscuits, so I suppose it could be worse. I enter Mrs. K's office, closing the door behind me, then take a seat. Hello, Lucille, Mrs. K says with a smile, like she's really happy to see me and this isn't part of her job. How was your day? It was the same as always, I say after a long pause. I hope Megan and her friends were being mean to you, Miss K asks. No, not really, I say, which isn't entirely true, but it's also not really a lie. They teased me on the bus, and they threw a packet of gum at my head, but they always do things like that, and I'm used to it. Well, if you're sure, Mrs. K says. She doesn't sound very sure herself, but she drops the subject. Now, would you like a cup of tea? I have some new leaves. Rosehip. It's supposed to be good for headaches. I don't have a headache, but I would like some tea, please. Wonderful. I'll put the kettle on. Mrs. K removes her portable kettle from the bottommost drawer of her desk and plugs it into the socket on the wall. She fills the kettle up with water and a drinking flask, then turns it on. The kettle beeps and the water inside of it begins to boil. Mrs. K winks at me constantly and presses a finger against her lips. Keep quiet about this, right? This is our little secret. I nod. Miss K isn't supposed to have a portable kettle in her office. It's against health and safety laws, apparently. It could be a fire hazard, but that sounds stupid to me. Miss K takes 2 cups from her cupboard and fills them with tea leaves. Steam begins to rise from the kettle. The water inside bubbles. Mrs. K picks up the kettle and fills up the 2 cups with the hot water. Then she hands the cup to me. Be careful, she says gently in a way I imagine my mother might talk to me if she didn't hate me. It's hot. I know. I can tell. I can see the steam. Mrs. K smiles. I'm sorry for being such an old fusspot, Lucille. You're more than capable of looking after yourself. The headmaster doesn't think that, I tell her as I accept my cup of piping hot tea from her hands. He wouldn't make me see you for counseling sessions twice a week. Oh, Lucille, Mrs. K said. She says, I already told you on paper these might be counseling sessions, but I'd rather prefer to sit and talk. Isn't that more relaxing? But they are counseling sessions, K says, but that doesn't mean we have to be so stiff and formal. Mrs. K looks at her cup of tea. She always drinks from a cup with the words, I love my mother on it, which might have been a present from her son, Soba, whose photograph is on her desk, but I doubt it. Mrs. K has told me a bit about her son, and he's only 4 years old. He's not old enough to buy anybody presents. Her husband probably bought it for her instead. Must be nice, I think, to have a family who loves you, who buys you things. I drink from a pale purple cup with white spots on it that Mrs. K says she bought specially for me. It's Lucille, she told me when she first showed me the cup, just like you. Don't you think it's adorable? I don't think things like cups are adorable because they're cold and made of ceramic. But I did not want to tell Mrs. K. I thought she was being silly because it would probably hurt her feelings. The psychological examination I had to take in the hospital said I was unusually withdrawn and expressive for a girl my age. Apparently this is because I'm on the autistic spectrum. The doctor said my condition was quite evident, and he was surprised I hadn't been diagnosed at a younger age, but I did not find it that surprising myself. My parents do not care about me enough to pay attention to me. You see, Mrs. K says, son, do you dislike our little chats? No, I don't. I like spending time with you. Well, that's a relief, Mrs. K says. I can't always tell with you. I hate to think that I was boring you. You're not boring, I reassure, because even adults like Miss K need reassuring sometimes. You're nice to me, and you make me tea, and you give me biscuits. I like that. Ah, yes, the biscuits. I almost forgot, Miss K says. She opens her magic drawer again, which she keeps her cups in her kettle, and moves a packet of ginger nuts. I am glad I am not a ginger, like Mrs. Potts in my class. I would probably get bored even more than I already do. Here, take one, Mrs. K says, and I do. I pluck a ginger nut from the packet and start to eat. I don't like sweets very much, but I make an exception for Mrs. K's biscuits. I probably shouldn't have any myself, Mrs. K says, looking at the packet fully. You can take another, Lucille. Why, I asked her. Don't you like ginger nuts? I do, but I'm trying to lose weight. I've not been quite the same since Soba was born, Mrs. K says. I look Mrs. K up and down, holding my biscuit in my fingers. Mrs. K is a bit on the chubby side with round cheeks like a rabbit's, but I don't think she's an ugly person. She's too kind to be ugly. Megan is very, very pretty, even prettier than A, maybe, but she's ugly on the inside, and that much is much, much worse than being a bit fat. Maybe you are a bit fat, I tell Mrs. K, but one biscuit won't hurt. Mrs. K laughs, though I don't understand why, and shakes her head. I know I stand with you, Lucille. You're not one for white lies, are you? I don't see the point in lying. Isn't it better to be honest, I ask? Yes, you're quite right. Should stay away from sweets, I know, but Mrs. K looks at the packet of biscuits and bites her lower lip. Surely one won't hurt. She takes the biscuit and puts it in her mouth. Then the two of us sit there a few moments in silence, eating biscuits and drinking tea. Mrs. K's one biscuit turns into 2, then 3, then 4, but I don't point this out because it looks like she's enjoying herself. I like it when Miss K smiles at me. Mrs. K's office smells of freshly brewed tea. It's a warm, relaxing smell that makes me feel at ease. The sunlight streams in through the window, illuminating spots of dust that drift in the air. It's winter, and the sun will probably be setting soon, but for now everything is nice and warm and safe and bright. Speaking of snacks, Mrs. K says when she has polished off another biscuit and takes a sip of tea, have you been eating well? You've been remembering to have breakfast, I hope. Not every day, I tell her, shaking my head. I don't feel like it. Could you eat something small like a yogurt or a piece of fruit, Miss K asks? I don't like yogurts or fruit. Oh dear, what a pickly girl you are. But you have no problem eating my biscuits, says Miss K. That's because I like being in your office, I tell her. It feels safe. I'm glad to hear that, Miss K says. But she has found she doesn't look very glad. But does that mean you don't feel safe at home? Not really, I say. Is your father still in a bad temper? Miss K asks. He's always in a bad temper. He doesn't shout at you, does he? Does he say any cruel things or insult you? He used to scold me a lot, but he doesn't talk to me very much now. It's like I don't even exist. And how does that make you feel? I shrug. It doesn't bother you? I don't know. Maybe I like this better. At least it's quiet at home. But you don't feel safe there, Mrs. K asks. It isn't that I don't feel safe, I tell her, trying to puzzle my own way through my feelings, but home isn't a nice place. It doesn't feel right, not since my brother left. I see, Mrs. K says with a small sigh. So you're still missing Jesse, are you? Of course I miss him, I say. I love him. Oh yes, I know how close the two of you were. It really is a shame that he had to leave, but I'm sure he's having fun in London, Mrs. K says, as though this will make me feel better about his absence. It doesn't. It actually makes me feel worse. Is that why you haven't been eating? Are you worried about your brother? I nod. And what about your sleep schedule? Are you getting enough rest? I shake my head. Thought as much, Mrs. K says. You have such dark rings beneath your eyes. You look like a little panda. I'm surprised you didn't fall asleep in class more often. I do fall asleep in class sometimes, I confess, but only in boring classes like English. Now don't be so wicked towards poor Mrs. Lambert. She's doing her best, you know. But she gave me a D in my English report, I say saltily, even though she said my vocabulary was good. She gave me a bad score because she doesn't like mermaids. Mermaids? We were supposed to research the village or town or city we lived in and write an article about it, I explained. Miss Lambert said I should write about D.H. Lawrence because he used to live near. And so on, but I thought was boring, so I wrote about the mermaids instead. Well, Miss Lambert did say you had to write about facts, Mrs. K says, her voice trailing off. They are facts, I wrote. I found the story on the internet. But it is a story, Mrs. K says doubtfully. Miss Lambert didn't want you to write about legends or fairy stories. Though it does sound like splitting hairs to me. She's being harsh because she hates me because I fall asleep in class sometimes, I say closely. Stupid cow. Please don't say things like that, Lucille. What, cow? That's right, Mrs. K. This might be a friendly chat, but if you say cruel and hurtful things, I have to tell Miss Lambert. And then what do you think will happen? I slink down in my chair, my eyes near, and say, I'll get in trouble again. That's right, Mrs. K says, so behave yourself. I know you can be a sweet girl when you want. Let's turn that frown upside down, alright? I don't feel like smiling, I tell her, not without Jessie. Sounds like this absence really has taken a toll on you, Mrs. K says. If you don't eat or sleep, you'll make yourself ill, and I'm sure Jessie wouldn't want that. If I got ill, it might make him come back quicker. He'll come back in due time. You don't need to cause yourself injury to make him care. Honestly, you're pining at him like a lovesick puppy. I don't say anything because Mrs. K is probably right. I am pining for him, and I do feel lovesick. I can't tell her that, though. I can't tell anybody how I feel about Jessie. Being a human is so exhausting. Why don't you try and look at the bright side, dear? Jessie isn't the only friend you have, Mrs. K says. I'm here for you, as you know, and there's a scene, too. Isn't there? She is a nice girl. I don't know how I feel about a scene, I say. Don't you appreciate her company, Mrs. K asks? I've seen the two of you eating lunch together. You look quite pally. I don't mind if she wants to be my friend, but I don't know why she does. It bothers me, I say. We don't have anything in common. I'm sure she likes you because you're a nice girl, Mrs. K says. No matter what you might think, who wouldn't want to be your friend? I see Phoebe, Lucy, and Megan don't. Oh, well, they might be a bit too immature to understand you, Mrs. K says. She frowns. They haven't stopped teasing you, haven't they? If there were any problems, you would tell me, wouldn't you? Don't worry. I try to reassure Mrs. K. I won't stab Megan with a compass again. That wasn't what I meant, Mrs. K said with a sigh, but, well, if you insist there's nothing wrong, I won't pry. That's what I like about Mrs. K. She might ask me a lot of uncomfortable questions that I don't always know how to know the answer to, but if she stops, she can tell it is too much for me, and she never gets cross. I wish all adults were like her. Now, I know you're missing Jessie, Mrs. K says, but you'll see him again soon. Until then, you should try to be nice to Shane. If you push her away, you only make yourself feel more isolated. I know that, I say in frown, because I don't hate Asheen at all, even if I think she's stupid. But being with her doesn't make me miss Jessie less. In fact, being with Asheen makes me think about Jessie more, because I know Asheen has a crush on him. Which isn't fair because he's my brother, and she should really have asked for my permission first. I know Asheen is a nice girl, and I know I'm not always nice to her. But I don't feel like being nice when Jessie isn't there. I wish Miss K would understand that. But nobody does. And out. How long's the stream been going for? About... Alright, well, we're going to cut this short. We're going to save here, and when we come back, we'll be having dinner at home with the family. But until then, everyone have a good rest of your day, and see you next time.